Hey everybody, welcome in. Happy Friday. Per usual, we're gonna wait about 5 minutes or so before getting started here on the forecast. So again, just give it a second here, or a couple minutes, not a second. Obviously, that's not quite how time works, but you get the point. Also, let me know where everyone is watching from. Again, go ahead and just type in the comments where you're watching from. Also, like the stream, and of course, if you haven't already subscribed, please do so. Again, all that really helps the channel out. So, would love that from everybody if you can. By the way, if I'm looking down at any point, I'm reading chat. So, yeah, that's what that is. Most on time GM stream, yeah, that's fair. Again, the second my phone hits 6:45, I hit the go live button. So, not too complicated there. Again, welcome in everybody. If you're just now joining us, go ahead, hit the like button on the stream and comment. Let me know where you're watching from. It's going to help me kind of know where to guide this stream directionally here and know which areas to talk about. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to go ahead and ask them in the comment section there, or in the chat section, I should say. And I will get around to answering those throughout the stream. It might take me a second for some of those questions if I'm in the middle of presenting something, but I'll get around to answering them as soon as I am available to. So again, just definitely do all of that. All right, watching from New Jersey, William, thank you for joining us. New Jersey, definitely, it's been a bit of a stormy one up there for sure. Let me know how much rain you've gotten if you keep track of that. Watching from North Charleston, South Carolina, yeah, and you're going to want to for sure because it could be a bit of a doozy in the Charleston area, and we know Charleston is already pretty prone to, unfortunately, it doesn't take much to put Charleston underwater. That is something that we are very well aware of here in the Carolinas. Watching from Tampa Bay, yep, Tampa area going to see some active weather here with Debbie as that rolls on through within the next couple of days. Again, still a tricky forecast though, so Tampa Bay is under tropical storm warning now, though, and again, we'll take a look at all those maps here in a moment, but do know that you are under that tropical storm warning there in Pinellas County and surrounding areas. Eastern Shore of Maryland, awesome. We got a couple people watching from the Northeast and the Mid-Atlantic there. Also got some people watching from Michigan here. Awesome, awesome. CJ back always from the Midlands of South Carolina. Will Beaufort, South Carolina be impacted? Yeah, probably, Tyler, in one way, shape, or form. At least rain, I imagine, at the very least there in Beaufort. Could see some gusty winds, though, maybe some storm surge as well. New London, Connecticut. Yeah, okay. Again, we got a lot of people here viewing from the Northeast and from the Midwest. I didn't have a lot of graphics pulled up for the Northeast, but since we got some viewers here, I'll pull them up kind of midstream here, and you can kind of see how that process works. So, again, just going to give it about 2 more minutes or so, and then we will get started on that forecast. But again, next to me is what is potential tropical cyclone 4. Again, likely to become Debbie as soon as overnight tonight, but probably sometime tomorrow. Don't look at 18Z icon. Yeah, I've been keeping up with the icon. I've got the icon pulled up from this afternoon. We're gonna take a look at it, not as a forecast, but again, I do think the icon is a good kind of metric for maybe worst case scenario. So we'll watch out for that one. Hey Bonnie, thanks for joining us. I got about 30 people in here right now. So again, thank you everybody. Again, don't forget, like the stream. That's gonna help it reach more people. Also, if you're not subscribed, please do so. We are trying to get to 10,000 subscribers here by the end of hurricane season, and I don't think we'll have a problem doing that. We've actually gotten about 400 subscribers or so since kind of the start of July there. So it's been a pretty solid month, and again, July was relatively slow, so very pleased with that growth, and I think we'll really keep that up here going into our August and through the rest of hurricane season. Alrighty, well, it's been about 5 minutes or so. I'm gonna go ahead and jump into things here now and start talking my life away a little bit. So, again, what you're looking at here is visible satellite imagery, and we've got the sun setting over again, potential tropical cyclone 4, likely to be tropical storm Bonnie, potentially Hurricane Bonnie. On or not Bonnie, I don't know why I'm saying Bonnie. Sorry, Bonnie. I just read your name, Debbie. Sorry, Bonnie. Congratulations, you're a hurricane now. But Debbie rather. So again, we'll be forecasting this, and I'll tell you, it feels like anytime we get one of these tropical systems, it makes a week feel like a year. So it's going to be quite a long week ahead, and we've been tracking this thing since it was out over portions of the Atlantic. Now, again, getting back over now parts of the Caribbean and the Southwest Atlantic. So you'll notice on satellite here, we're starting to get a pretty tight area of spin here in the mid and lower levels, just south of Cuba here. And this is going to be big in that forecast. We've been talking about it the past couple of days. Wherever this low level center of circulation forms is going to really impact the forecast on down the road. And I think we're finally seeing where that's going to happen here. Again, right over this circled area, I think we're going to very likely see some of that center finally begin to form. And again, it's looking more and more impressive by the minute. You can see these wind barbs kind of moving in different directions just in the clouds here. And again, all of that indicating that circulation is really beginning to get its act together in the mid levels, and eventually will work its way down to the lower levels over the next couple of hours and through tomorrow as well. So again, it's a pretty active scene on visible satellite. Also, those little yellow dots you see, those are lightning bolts. Again, bringing some pretty enhanced or enhancing that convection here, and just showing that future Debbie already kind of looking like it doesn't want to be messed with. And if we take a look at infrared satellite as well, again, you can also see we've got these widespread thunderstorms, even thunderstorm activity over the Florida Peninsula today, specifically south of the I-4 corridor. That is technically kind of in the realm here of future Debbie. So all of it's connected here. Again, already kind of seeing some of those early on impacts, but impacts through much of Florida really going to increase tomorrow afternoon as Debbie gets over the Gulf of Mexico and begins that strengthening throughout the day, and likely conditions going to deteriorate throughout Saturday and even into Sunday for many of our folks, really throughout all of the peninsula, but especially the west coast from Naples, Fort Myers, Port Charlotte, up through Tampa, and likely even into the Big Bend, going to really see some of those impacts starting to increase throughout time here. So watching out for that. But again, infrared, again, you can still kind of see right in here is that center of circulation trying to form. You're seeing some of this banding trying to wrap around on one side, and then this kind of, more widespread kind of messy convection on the north side. All of it, again, organizing, and again, looks way better than it did yesterday by really just about every stretch of the term there. So again, that's a current look at satellite imagery. Now, latest from the National Hurricane Center. Again, they just started this potential tropical cyclone thing the past couple of years here, and they're putting it into effect now. So technically, this isn't Debbie yet, but this is an area that they're saying is very likely to become Debbie. And because of that, and since land impacts are so soon from now, they've gone ahead and put out a cone here. So again, much of the Florida Peninsula is in this cone, and I'll go ahead and zoom in a little bit here. Also, I will mention the yellow kind of outline on your map are tropical storm watches. That blue area are tropical storm warnings. And again, we're going to zoom into those warnings here on the next map to really give you a better idea. But just know we already have watches and warnings issued for this storm system as impacts, again, are not far away. But landfall expected here as a pretty strong tropical storm, anywhere from 50 miles an hour up towards 65 miles an hour here is kind of the forecast from the National Hurricane Center. So, you get to 65 miles an hour. That's nothing to write off, even for you folks in Florida who are used to these tropical systems. That also indicates a strengthening storm upon landfall. And you can ask our folks back into Texas who got hit by Beryl. It might, might only be labeled a Category 1 or a tropical storm, but any storm that is strengthening as it's moving inland always generally feels about a category higher. So we've got a high-end tropical storm strengthening. It probably will feel more like a Category 1 as this makes landfall anywhere from the Fort Myers area up towards Tallahassee. This is kind of the general box that the NHC has outlined for possible landfall probabilities, and tomorrow we'll have a way better idea of exactly where it'll be. Again, we're going to get that center of circulation to form likely overnight tonight or tomorrow morning, and from that point on, the forecast will be much more clear. But again, things are already getting more clear today. But again, Landfall timing wise, if we get a landfall that's kind of more down near Tampa, Fort Myers, Port Charlotte, we're likely going to have this storm move in probably within 48 hours. So that would get us towards Sunday afternoon or evening is whenever we would probably see that landfall. But if we get a landfall further up towards the Big Bend of Florida, again, that's going to be closer to 60 hours from now. So do the math, that'd be more Sunday night into Monday compared to the weekend. So it's going to play a big role for a couple reasons. Obviously, the more time this has over land, the more time it's going to, excuse me, more time over water rather, the more time it's going to have to really, use up that heat content in the ocean and take advantage of those lighter wind shear ingredients and kind of strengthen here. Now, what happens next is a great question that honestly I nor any meteorologist can tell you know exactly what's going to happen after that point, and I'll show you why once we take a look at those steering currents here in a moment. But just go ahead and know it's a tricky forecast after Florida. All indications are the storm is going to, at a bare minimum, slow down at some point. In fact, it could even stall out potentially somewhere here off the southeast coastline. Now, you'll notice the cone gets kind of big, so technically the center here could go anywhere from Macon, Georgia, and up near kind of Lawrence, South Carolina, and into the Piedmont of North Carolina, to being completely offshore here by a good couple of hundred of miles. So we've got a wide range of possibilities here, but right now, if we were to look at the center of this, the most likely solution is this storm slowly crawls or stalls just offshore of the Carolinas or just inland in the Carolinas. And obviously, it's going to make a huge difference as to which one of those solutions we have. If it's just offshore, it's going to have the potential to continue to strengthen and become a stronger storm. While if it's just a little bit further inland, then it'll be just more of a rainfall and some onshore flow with some probably a bit of a severe weather threat as well, should that solution happen. But most of the models today keep this offshore of the Carolinas and strengthen it up to hurricane status before moving it back inland, either over eastern North Carolina or somewhere over South Carolina or somewhere in between. So that's been the trend today. And again, we'll show you those models here in just a second. But NHC, they are going with, again, a strong tropical storm. 65 miles an hour is the forecast. And this is for 120 hours out from now. So let's see if we can do math. That's probably going to be about the middle to end of next work week. So this would be next Thursday or Wednesday. Again, still hanging around the southeast coastline. So today's Saturday, impacts to Florida are beginning tomorrow, and this thing could still be impacting the Carolinas a good 5, maybe even 6 days from now. So again, it's gonna be a bit of a tricky forecast after this hits Florida, but we'll know a lot more tomorrow as this gets over the Gulf for sure. Alrighty, that is the latest from the National Hurricane Center. Now let's take a look here at our latest watches, warnings, and advisories. And I'll zoom out a little bit here because, again, we've got people viewing from all over. In fact, I'll even turn on radar here just so I can give you a quick background on what's happening for everybody. So again, it has been a hot day. I can tell you in Charlotte, I walked outside and it felt like an easy bake oven. So I'm sure many of you probably felt the same way. It has been extremely hot. A couple highlighted places here. Again, the I-95 corridor here from Raleigh northbound towards Boston has been dangerously hot. Same story down here through the Mid-South where it's also been dry. Through Arkansas, Louisiana, Texas, Mississippi, it's just been a real scorcher. Has not felt good. And again, unfortunately, it is August, so as much as we like to pretend August is fall because it's one step closer, unfortunately, it's not quite. So again, it has been hot, but we've also had some pretty widespread rain. We've had some good showers and storms through the Ohio River Valley and the Mid-Atlantic as well as Northeast this afternoon, and that is helping to cool off some of us. But again, unfortunately, it's only doing so much. So again, I'll briefly throw that in here and mention that. But getting back down to the impacts or the watches, warnings, and advisories that we currently have, down here into Florida, again, anywhere that you see these light pink colors, those are tropical storm watches. These darker reds are tropical storm warnings. And we also have storm surge watches and warnings up, and I'll show you that here later on in the live stream or the video, depending on when you're watching this. And we'll take a look at some of those impacts on down the road. But again, an active scene over the Florida Peninsula, tropical storm warnings from Everglades National Park along the Gulf Coast all the way up through Cape Coral here. Even up towards Port Charlotte. This does include the Fort Myers area here. So again, Fort Myers Beach, again, unfortunately no stranger to tropical weather. Had Ian move through just a year or two ago now and saw those devastating impacts. Luckily, this storm is not going to be another Ian for you, but we could see some limited storm surge and some tropical storm conditions. And all these lighter pink areas with these tropical storm watches, again, give the map just a second to load here, extending from just north of Fort Myers up through Sarasota, through Tampa Bay, through Pinellas County, and even up into the Big Bend of Florida. And these likely to be upgraded to tropical storm warnings here probably tomorrow. And we could even see some of these watches expanded upwards a little bit more into deeper up north into the Big Bend of Florida. So it's going to be an active one for sure. Alrighty, let me read a couple comments here because I have not. And again, for anyone that's joining us, welcome. Again, like the stream, subscribe if you haven't already for sure, as that goes a long way in helping out the channel here. Does it make its way into the New York City area? So again, I'll briefly go back here to the cone. The cone does not include anyone in the Northeast. It does get up to Virginia, so Norfolk, Richmond, and kind of surrounding areas, but we'll just have to wait and see. Again, we don't even really know what it's going to do near the Carolinas yet, let alone the Northeast. And again, I'll show you some model runs here in a moment, just to not leave you hanging, but just too soon to know there, Peter. So ready for fall to get here? Yeah, I agree with you, Melanie. I am ready to go. I could use some pumpkin spice in college football for sure. Will Augusta, Georgia be impacted? Augusta, we'll take a look at some models here, and we're about to get there. Augusta, luckily, probably going to be on the drier side of this storm. Not to say that there won't be rain. There probably will be some, but looks to be a little bit closer towards the drier side of things. Do I see Carolina coastline getting watches or warnings? Yeah, definitely. I think that's going to be pretty likely to see at the bare minimum watches. In fact, I think the Carolina coastline might be some of the first areas to get hurricane watches out of the system. So, yeah, definitely, Tyler. I think that'll be likely within the coming days. Miami impacted? Yeah, Miami will see some rain, and we'll take a look at that here in just a second. But let's take a look at the latest spaghetti models. And again, we're going to get new ones in about an hour or two. But you'll notice we've gained a pretty good consensus today. Now, one problem with this is the real center is really kind of down here. I know it's hard to see that circle I just drew on your map. Again, most of these models initializing the center kind of over Cuba, but the real center is forming a little bit south of there. So if we were to shift all of this over a little bit, that would eventually lead to this landfall being a little bit further west. So we'll see if that plays an impact. It may not. It may form here and then kind of get tugged north pretty quickly and be right back on track. But again, just know that these spaghetti models are not perfect right now by any means, but they are, in a consensus here that this is going to cross Florida and then hug, and I really do mean hug, the Carolina coastline and potentially making a second landfall up near the Carolina coastline. And another thing, it's kind of hard to tell on this map, but a lot of these really slow it down in this range. So it may take a good 3, 4, maybe 5 days to go from Georgia up to the Outer Banks of North Carolina, assuming it even takes that track. Some of our models kind of do this number and then loop it right back into South Carolina, which you're not seeing so much on the spaghetti models here, but when we look at the ensembles here in just a moment, you will. So again, that's the latest spaghetti models. Going to get updates on that here soon, but just know not a perfect science by any means, but definitely fun to look at. It's weird that the deterministic models have the stall and then hit into most of these areas, but I assume you mean the spaghetti models are very progressive. Yeah, definitely it is. We are seeing some differences, but overall, I think whenever we look at the ensembles, you'll see that the deterministic models are probably a little bit closer to reality. And right now, I'm going to talk about why we're seeing that difference between some of the models. So again, we'll take a look at this. These are steering currents, and I'm going to kind of pause this right here. This is the latest European from this afternoon, and this is Sunday afternoon. So here's the storm just offshore of Tampa. And again, I'm going to go in depth on the impacts in a second, but just to kind of give a broad view of why the steering currents are so strange and kind of difficult to latch onto here. We've got a couple things we're working with. So here's the storm system, again, up near Tampa. At the same time, we've got this trough kind of diving into the mid-Atlantic. This is the same reason we're seeing all those storms right now. And what's trying to happen is this storm is trying to latch onto this trough and kind of move in between these two ridges in the orange. And it tries to do that on the latest European and on really all the models. But what happens is that trough, it starts moving and doesn't really care about the storm all that much. And what happens is a ridge rebuilds into place, and then the storm kind of just gets stuck here. So again, the latest European stalls us out over North Florida from overnight Sunday through Monday afternoon and even into Tuesday before Tuesday afternoon slowly working back over the Atlantic Ocean. And here's what happens next. Again, we've got this ridge out west that is, pretty strong, bringing that heat. And what this ridge eventually does is continues to build this way and brings the flow around it kind of like this. And what happens is the storm then again strengthens because it's over the open ocean, it's over that Gulf Stream. And then here comes that ridge later on, it builds back in and then shoves the storm back into South Carolina as a strong tropical system, borderline even a hurricane. So again, that's one steering current that could potentially happen. But then we take a look at the GFS model, and this is brand new here, straight from 18Z. So we will go ahead and refresh the page, and run this together at the same time. So let me quickly kind of move all the way ahead. In fact, you probably even got a sneak peek there at potentially another system on down the road, which we'll save for another time. But here we go. So again, same thing on the GFS, moves into the Big Bend of Florida. Same idea. It's got this trough here that wants to pick up the storm, but just doesn't quite do it. Again, here's your storm, and it just kind of gets trapped. What happens is steering currents break down, high pressure builds back in, and this just stalls off the South Carolina coastline as a strong tropical storm, borderline hurricane at this point, and then just slowly meanders. Now, here's the difference between the two. The European rebuilt a ridge to the north that shoved it back into South Carolina. The GFS says, well, we're getting towards fall. Maybe a cold front tries to swing down out of Canada and pick this up and lift it northward and then back out to sea and then up the northeast coastline. So you folks in the northeast, here you go. You're getting a look at it. Again, the GFS tries to merge a front up into Canada with this storm, and then this rides right up through the mid-Atlantic coastline just offshore by 100 miles or so late this work week and into the weekend, and again would bring its own impact. So you'll notice if I just back this up, this is Friday morning on the GFS. This is Friday morning on the European. So you're wondering why we're having problems here forecasting. Here's one model, here's the other. One model, the other. So again, what we know right now is Florida's going to get hit. Florida's going to get some rain. It's going to get some wind. The Carolinas likely are going to get hit in one way, shape, or form. But for all the questions I'm getting in the Northeast, this is why the forecast is so tough. Yeah, a lot of agreement, definitely. So, it's just tough whenever you have these kind of systems. And luckily, again, the closer we get, the better we're going to know how the upper air patterns are going to behave. We'll launch our balloons over land. We'll get whatever data we can over the oceans. And then that will help us. And kind of a tidbit of information here for those of you that are curious, oftentimes why we struggle with these systems and just kind of forecasting really any type of weather in the medium to long range is these air masses that are going to impact it are generally still over the Pacific Ocean. And we're not launching weather balloons over the middle of the Pacific, so that makes it difficult to collect the data. And thus the models are kind of guessing for a lot of what's happening over Earth's atmosphere during most of the time. So it's a science that has developed a lot over the past couple of years, but it is by no means a perfect science at all. So, yeah. Also, we're up to about 60 viewers, so I appreciate it, y'all. I do appreciate it. Again, if you're just now joining us, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Again, it goes a long way in helping us out. All right, so with all that said, let's go ahead and take a look at some models. And I'm not going to do a bunch tonight. I'm going to just do a couple here. I'm going to do three: the GFS, the European, the Icon. We'll look at ensembles, and then we'll dive into impacts a little bit more here. And I think there was one more thing I also had loaded up to show you that I cannot quite fully remember, but we will see what happens. So here we go. This is Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, latest GFS. Again, this is straight from this evening, so this is the latest model data we have. Here's the storm just off the southwest coast of Florida during the day Saturday. And again, you'll notice widespread rain is going to be a big theme across the Florida Peninsula through much of the weekend. So it's going to rain good, and I'll show you those rainfall totals here later on. But the storm is also going to be strengthening, so wind speed's picking up. Again, we've got a tropical storm Sunday morning on the GFS just northwest of Tampa. And eventually develops into a pretty strong tropical storm. Again, about what the NHC is showing, probably about a 65-mile-an-hour tropical storm here, moving up through the Big Bend of Florida. And then eventually, and I should add, this is Sunday evening, about 8 p.m. Eastern. So again, bringing that rain, bringing that surge. And again, just about all day Sunday and much of Saturday afternoon, we're going to see that onshore flow here through Fort Myers, Port Charlotte, Tampa Bay, and kind of surrounding areas. So if you're in that area, and you're in a kind of flood prone area, just go ahead and play it safe and just assume that there will be some water rising, even if not a ton. It'll probably be 2 to 4 feet. And again, I'll show you that surge map here in a minute. But again, then throughout the overnight Sunday into Monday, this moves up across the I-10 corridor, gets out back near Jacksonville. Still is a pretty feisty tropical storm. Again, would probably bring a couple tornado warnings with it. Gusty winds, flooding, the normal tropical storm symptoms. And then Monday afternoon, back out over the open Atlantic just offshore of Savannah, and begins to re-strengthen once more as a tropical storm. And Monday evening into Tuesday, again, folks watching in Charleston, hate to be a Debbie Downer, pun intended there, but we're gonna see some onshore flow here from Myrtle Beach, Charleston, up through Wilmington, and again, these are cities that already kind of like to flood on their own without help from the tropics. And anytime you get a strengthening tropical system just offshore of South Carolina, that's going to spell trouble for a lot of these communities. Again, Georgetown, Charleston, Garden City, Murrells Inlet, Horry County, again, back up towards Wilmington. Going to see these impacts. And again, GFS continues to strengthen it and kind of stalls it out a little bit, gets lost in the sauce here, if you will. And by the time we're getting into overnight Tuesday into Wednesday, the storm is meandering offshore as a borderline major hurricane. So I don't say this to scare you, and I don't say this to tell you this is exactly what's going to happen. In fact, we'll take a look at a couple ingredients that would say, maybe the storm doesn't get this strong. But again, it meanders right over the Gulf Stream, strengthens up towards major hurricane status, and then books it north into eastern North Carolina. This is next Thursday afternoon. So again, this is, almost a week away. This is 6 days. So you kind of get the idea. The storm's not moving very quick here. And then again, wherever this second landfall would be, impacts would matter, depending on that exact location, of course. But I think somebody in the Carolinas is going to they're going to get a pretty good storm out of this. Not to say a storm of a lifetime or anything like that, but it's going to be one that you probably remember, and it's going to pack a punch. Should we get a solution like this where it moves over the open ocean and then hooks it back inland somewhere? Again, GFS hooks it over eastern North Carolina, and then you know what? For my friends in the Northeast, I'll just show you just because I know you want to see it. So we will do it. We'll move this to the Northeast. Then the GFS again strengthens this, moves it up the eastern seaboard, up into the Northeast, and we've got a strong hurricane just offshore of New Jersey, Long Island, again, about 5 or 6 days from now, and then, moving much quicker at this point and tracking up along the coastline. So again, from North Carolina onbound, I'll tell you, it's going to change. Absolutely, it's going to change. So don't take this as, the gospel by any means, but you can take it and look at it and say, well, maybe things get interesting later next week for sure. All right, so that's the GFS. And again, once again, I'm just going to say thank you to everyone. We're at a stream high here of about 60 to 70 viewers. So again, I appreciate it. Let me check some comments here as well. Or some chats, I guess is what we're calling it. The model I saw was dancing and went west. That's probably the European. I'm about to show that here in just a second. Joseph asking about New England. Hopefully I just answered that question. I'm not going to say it's impossible for the storm to impact you, but I am going to say it is way too early to really know what kind of impacts that would be. So again, Joseph, unfortunately, that's the most that we know at this point. All right, European model. Same general idea here. We'll start Saturday. Same story for Florida on both models. The European, though, is a tad weaker, but moves us into the Big Bend of Florida about 12 hours later than the GFS. Now, why is the European weaker? Great question. I don't buy it. I can't imagine a storm moving over the Gulf and not strengthening at all. So I do feel more confident towards the GFS strength-wise for you folks in Florida. I think we've got a pretty feisty tropical storm, borderline hurricane. That's kind of moving on through, but the timing could change. Again, the Euro is about 12 hours later than the GFS. That part is very possible. This could be more of a Monday morning landfall than a Sunday night. Again, it's the steering currents are going to be tough here, so the storm could kind of stall at any moment. So that part is possible. But again, Saturday, Sunday, it's going to be rainy in Florida. It's going to be windy. The waves are going to be tough. We're going to have rip current issues. All the things that you would kind of expect here with a tropical storm. Now, the European stalls us out a little bit longer over North Florida and over South Georgia. Again, would bring rainfall to those communities. But then, again, like the other models, gets it back over the Atlantic here come Tuesday afternoon and begins to strengthen it just like the GFS just offshore of Charleston here. And again, here's that onshore flow. Again, if you're watching Charleston to Myrtle Beach to Wilmington, this weekend might be a good time to just play it safe, and any kind of pre-surge prep you do, maybe just do it out of, the kindness of your heart for yourself and the future you that is going to want that done. So, again, it's just play it safe. If I'm from Charleston northbound through the Outer Banks, I'm doing any kind of storm surge prep that I would need to do. Again, even if this doesn't make landfall, if it's still offshore in a strengthening system, that surge is going to strengthen as we get that onshore flow. And again, the European here says, like the GFS, yep, it's going to park offshore, it's going to get stronger. And here we go. It stays offshore Tuesday all the way through Thursday afternoon before it hooks it back in and brings a landfall right into Charleston, kind of Hugo style here. Not to say that the impacts would be like Hugo, but landfall location wise and kind of coming from the same direction there. So again, this would be probably a strong Category 1 hurricane at this kind of pressure. And then again, moves inland over South Carolina and eventually towards the Augusta area, Columbia area, and up the Savannah River, and then kind of just hangs out over the southeast and rains itself out. So that is one model. Again, that is our European operational run. And again, it's a possibility. I'm not saying it's going to happen like that. In fact, it probably won't happen like that, but it is a possibility that we will watch for. All right, going to show you one more model here. This is the Icon, and I will warn you ahead of time. Many in the Southeast probably have already seen this one. This is what I would consider probably worst case scenario for the storm, which means it's not the most likely scenario, I will also add, but it is a distinct possibility. Again, would probably bring the roughest impacts to those of us in South Carolina and North Carolina. Well, anything severe occur in New York from the aftermath of this? Marco, again, for the Northeast, I can't guarantee anything right now. It is possible the storm does track up the eastern seaboard and could bring problems up that way. It's also, possible this pulls what the European does and just doesn't even really get North Carolina. It's just really too soon to know. But stay tuned and come back for tomorrow morning's video, and we should know a little bit more, hopefully, especially after this week. And once we get to Monday, Tuesday of next week, then we'll really know probably a lot more for you folks in the Northeast. All right, here we go. Icon time. So Icon, again, starts the same like the other models. In fact, looks pretty identical to the GFS and European starting out. So again, in Florida, we've got this pretty well figured out. Now, the storm strength could be a little stronger. That's something we'll have to watch for, but we feel pretty confident this is going to ride up the West Coast and make landfall somewhere in the Big Bend, probably from Sunday night through Monday morning as a most likely landfall time. So here we go with the Icon. Now, the Icon gets it back over Florida and back through Georgia and into the open Atlantic a little bit sooner here. So again, makes landfall Monday morning, spends the day Monday overland, and then Monday evening and overnight Monday back over the Atlantic, and begins to strengthen pretty rapidly here during Tuesday morning. Now, again, the Icon solution is one that it is possible. Again, this is what I'm considering kind of the upper echelon of possibilities in terms of impacts. This would be kind of worst case scenario. But again, continues to strengthen, parks itself just offshore from Charleston starting Tuesday morning, slowly crawls up the South Carolina coastline, gets to Myrtle Beach by Wednesday morning as a major hurricane, and again, bringing widespread impacts, and then slowly kind of meanders around a little bit and then works its way back into eastern North Carolina. Now, that was the 12Z Icon. I'll show you the 18Z as well. Now, the 18Z doesn't go out quite as far as the 12Z did, but I'll show it to you just to say I did. Again, shows the same general idea. It's kind of sticking to its guns here. Strong tropical storm landfall into the Big Bend Monday morning, back out over the Atlantic Tuesday, and then again just parks itself right offshore of Charleston here as a strong hurricane. So that's the Icon model. Again, not to take it to heart, but to know that that's probably what I would consider the worst of the possibilities here from any of our models. All right, let's look at some ensembles, everybody's favorite. Now, these are spaghettis on steroids, as I call them. These are all of the spaghetti models that make up the European model. And again, the European was the one that stalled this over Charleston and then hooked it inland and kind of died out throughout the Southeast. And you'll notice it's got some support from its ensemble members. There's a pretty good chunk here that do that same thing. that you'll see here at the beginning started right it up the west coast of Florida slowly, bring it inland into Florida, and then back out over the coast of Georgia, and then up, stalling over or just offshore the Carolinas, and then hooking it back inland somewhere over the Carolinas and strengthening during that process. So, um, that's something that is good, at least that we're seeing agreement here with the ensembles and the operational run. Now we take a look at the GFS, and I'm gonna have to refresh this because this was loading as we were talking about all the previous stuff. Looks like it might still be loading actually. Yeah, so this is taking a little bit longer to load, so we will have to move this back to the 12Z, which is okay. No problems doing that. Assuming it loads, that is. All right, here we go. Awesome. Again, thank you everyone for joining. If you haven't already subscribed, please do so. Like the stream. That's going to help it reach more people, and would mean a lot to me as well. So, all right, let's back this up a little bit. This is the 12Z GFS and its ensemble members. Now, you'll notice a lot of these members bring it a little bit further south towards Tampa. I would kind of disregard that. This was, again, when the GFS was assuming that this would initialize over kind of Cuba, but again, it's looking like everything in the short term is shifting west a tad. So that's the good news for you folks in Tampa, although I'll add it'll just kind of prolong the impacts the further up the coast this ride. So maybe not good news, but it is a difference in the forecast. Now, we bring this further ahead into time. The GFS and most of its ensemble members do think this gets over the Atlantic. Again, just about every member here has this offshore of South Carolina, Georgia, or North Carolina this weekend. And then, this is where things differ a little bit. Now, some of them do stall out, but we've got more GFS members that kind of ride this up the coast and up towards the Northeast. So again, I showed you the operational GFS. In fact, we will zoom this out for you, and we'll include you folks in the Northeast as well. So let's see if we can, we'll use this map. This is fine. So again, if we move this ahead right up to this time frame, this gets us towards next week. And again, we've got a lot of GFS members, at least from this afternoon. Now, again, this evening's run is running right now, but a lot of them slow in near the Carolina coast. Some of them bring it back inland, but then a lot of them kind of speed it up, move it over the Outer Banks maybe, but then kind of ride it up the East Coast and could bring, impacts to you folks in the Northeast and the Mid-Atlantic. And if anyone's watching from Eastern Canada, New Brunswick and Nova Scotia there as well. So, differences between the two for sure, absolutely. But in the short range, again, we've kind of got the forecast a lot more confident for you folks in Florida. All right, let's briefly talk about some potential limiting factors with this system because, it is going to strengthen, I think, but there are not 100% perfect parameters for strengthening. And this is some of the good news I'll show you here. We'll start with dry air here in just a second after I drink some more of this Earl Grey tea. Also, by the way, if I haven't already, shout out the Are You Serious podcast. Go check that out. That is a wonderful podcast about the weather that I was on at one point, which is probably linked somewhere on the channel. So if you want to check that out, do it, or just go watch their podcast in general. Great stuff there. So. All right. We're talking about dry air. That's right. Sorry. Mind on the Earl Grey tea still. Like I said, I don't think this is going to be a picnic for Debbie. I think it is going to have problems that it's going to run into here in terms of dry air, as well as probably a little bit of wind shear. But I think dry air is going to be the biggest limiting factor here in the, short run and probably even the long run as well. So here's the storm. Again, this is our latest GFS model, but you'll notice there's a lot of dry air over portions of the South Central United States, and even some of that kind of here not far from the storm. And you'll even notice this on a lot of the models I showed you. There's some dry air that tries to come into the backside here. So I do think this storm's going to be tilted a little bit towards the eastern side, at least over Florida. Now that could change a little over the Carolinas. So again, this doesn't really help us in the short term as, Florida's on the eastern side anyway. So if everything's tilted that way, obviously, all the impacts are going to be right over the Florida Peninsula anyway. But it could help limit the rapid intensification. And that's why I think probably Category 1 storm would be on the higher end of things here for landfall into the Big Bend. Not to say something a little stronger is impossible. It's not by any means. But again, probably going to see something closer towards tropical storm strength up to Category 1 upon landfall here in Florida. Now, after that, this moves up near the Carolinas, and you'll notice, look at all this dry air. Again, this is the good stuff in terms of choking out these systems. Now, unfortunately, everything kind of over the center and on the eastern side of the storm is very moist. And again, this is not going to help with that onshore flow. And again, even to the north of the storm, plenty of precipitable water and high humidity values. That's going to bring big time flooding concerns to the South Carolina coastline, probably. But you will notice that dry air is not far. And in fact, it very much could try to get wrapped into the storm here. The GFS kind of fights it off a little bit here, but don't completely rule out some dry air getting entrenched into the storm here. It definitely could, and that's something we're going to want to hope for in the Carolinas. Also, good news with this is if you're watching in the upstate of South Carolina and we get a track like this that's just offshore, the rain's not going to make it far inland. Now, on the coast, absolutely, you're going to have problems. But, you get to Columbia, Greenville, Charlotte, Asheville, some of that dry air is probably going to, stay in place and help, prevent some of the higher rainfall totals. So that's the good news here. Now, wind shear wise, I'm going to have to refresh this one as well, which I guess I can just do with my mouse instead of, yeah, there we go, perfect. So wind shear wise, again, not a lot going on. This is at the upper levels of the atmosphere. Now, this weekend, again, maybe some small wind shear kind of moving in this way. That could try to, again, maybe bring some of that dry air in towards the center of the storm. But all things considered, wind shear is going to be slightly hard to come by here. But again, you'll notice here, kind of going towards this weekend, we do have a little bit of a trough here up in the upper levels of the atmosphere that may try to, again, enhance some wind shear kind of that helps to push some of that convection and storms onto one side of the storm system and may also help to, again, entrap a little bit of dry air on the south side and specifically the southwesterly side of the storm. That's something we'll hope for. But I will also note that models oftentimes struggle with wind shear, in the medium range. In fact, sometimes they struggle in the short range, let alone the medium range. So that is something to hope for, but not something to completely get excited about. All right. So we're going to talk about some impacts here. Then I'll take all your questions. Then I'll let you go here. And we'll start with storm surge. Again, storm surge watch is in effect from Cape Coral down here near the Fort Myers area, Bonita Springs, Port Charlotte, all the way up towards Sarasota into St. Petersburg, Florida, Clearwater, Tampa, Pinellas County, Tampa Bay, and even up a good bit through the Big Bend. So why do we have these storm surge watches? Well, latest forecast from the NHC, a good 2 to 4 feet of surge from Fort Myers again up to, let's see if I can not butcher this name, Suwannee River maybe. I'm sure that's probably a native name that I'm messing up, but either way, again, west coast of Florida, going to see some surge here, likely in the 2 to 4 feet range. Further south of there, from kind of Card Sound Bridge up towards Bonita Beach, that kind of range down near the Everglades, 1 to 3 feet. So less, but again, 2 to 4 feet isn't nothing, and that's enough that, again, we have storm surge watches in effect, likely to be upgraded to warnings tomorrow. So go ahead and just prepare for that, with this storm system here into Florida. Wow, good. I don't know if you can hear that, but that is a good lightning bolt that just happened right outside of my place. So that is cool. Love some good thunder while we're doing a live stream. Awesome. Cool. So that was exciting. Rainfall, another concern that I can guarantee you is going to, be a problem. Florida, absolutely, probably about half a foot of rain widespread up the west coast from wherever it makes landfall southbound. And that's going to continue into those areas of the I-4 corridor, even up near Jacksonville. We're going to see probably a good half a foot of rain of, if as a general metric, as a median, but it could be more than that in spots. And then Carolina coastline, tougher forecast here because, again, it depends how close towards the shore does the storm go, how much dry air gets wrapped into it. And again, the track's just more difficult there. But again, just go ahead and prepare for flooding from Jacksonville all the way up through Savannah, Charleston, Myrtle Beach, Wilmington, and into the Outer Banks. We're going to see flooding. I can almost guarantee you. Whether that's fresh water or salt water, we'll see, but probably a little bit of both, to be completely honest. All right, wind gusts, and I don't want to show this to you and beat it like a dead horse because, in fact, again, we don't really know entirely what's going to happen here with the wind gust forecast, but I will show you the latest GFS run. Again, this is straight from this evening. And we'll get this into Saturday afternoon. It's going to be breezy through Florida for sure, and that will continue throughout the day Saturday into Sunday. And Sunday morning, again, we've got winds gusting up near tropical storm strength through the Tampa Bay area, back down near Fort Myers. Again, especially on the beaches, further inland, probably tropical depression wind speeds there, at least gusting up to that. But again, strongest winds for Florida, it's going to be near landfall. Again, probably right here on this right side of the eye, or whatever sort of eye that we do have. Again, winds gusting up into this region near 60 miles an hour. It could be even more than that. And I always do that. I always take a sounding by accident. But again, could get pretty feisty there. Now that's Sunday afternoon, and then Sunday evening we get the landfall, or Monday morning. Again, the models differ. But then this moves upwards into South Georgia. Gonna be breezy for sure. I think Macon, Savannah, down here near Valdosta, probably near the Florida-Georgia line. Not sponsored by the band, unfortunately, but if we were, then I'd be very happy about it. But again, gusty there for sure as the storm moves through Monday. And then this gets back over the Atlantic, and then that's when the GFS really strengthens this thing. So it'll be a breezy couple of days, probably along the Carolina coastline from South Carolina starting there. Again, Charleston gusting up near tropical storm strength. Probably same story for Myrtle Beach at some point next week. Again, when, we'll have to wait to find out. But then the GFS, again, strengthens this up a little bit more, and we're going to move the map northbound here. Again, it strengthens it up near Wilmington, tries to move it inland, and look at these wind gusts. These are gusting up near 90 miles an hour just offshore, up to tropical storm strength along the shoreline, and then again moves it inland, and then the Outer Banks get absolutely walloped with hurricane force winds, and that would be its own problem. And again, from here on out, I'll show it to you just out of the kindness of my heart, but please do not tell the world that Gerald said there's going to be a massive hurricane that goes up the I-95 corridor. But here's the wind gusts again that try to get up into the northeast should this track close towards the shore and kind of catch that next trough and move up inland. And again, just to be super nice, I'll even show you the northeast itself. Again, don't tell anybody I told you. But here it is again, moves up the coastline. Well, if we can get there. This will be next Friday. Again, strong storm obviously, and would almost have nor'easter-like impacts with obviously more tropical air. So. Alrighty, that is the forecast. That's what I've got for you. Do we have any questions? Go ahead, ask away, and I will answer as many as I can, and then we will go from there. So again, I'm going to sit here and drink a little bit of tea and give everyone some time to ask some questions. And if it's something that I already answered, you can ask it again if I happen to have, or if you happen to miss that section. Again, feel free to ask. I will also add here, thanks again to everyone. This was the best stream of the week by a good bit here in terms of viewers and just views overall. So again, we had up near 80 viewers at one point, so that's super awesome. Thanks, guys. Do I think New York City will see hurricane impacts from Maddie? Yeah, again, I just don't know. And any meteorologist that tells you they know right now is just lying to your face. It really just depends on how these upper steering currents happen in the atmosphere. Anything past Florida, it's a tough go right now. Up for the Northeast, I will say it's possible. I'm not going to say it's not possible, but right now it's a pretty low probability event. I'd say probably about a 20% chance that we see actual hurricane impacts anywhere north of Virginia. But again, we'll watch it. Don't take that as a no for sure. Again, you'll just have to come back and kind of stay tuned. So. I have a flight out of Tampa Wednesday. Do I think it'll go on as scheduled? Again, I'm not your airline pilot or the control person in the tower, so I don't want to say yes or no, but by Wednesday, you should be good. I mean, if we go back towards the GFS model, let's see, which one do we want to use? I guess this one, or actually we'll use the European just because it's, even the European, which, oh my gosh, I don't know if you saw that, scared the heck out of me. That lightning bolt was crazy close. Wow, that was good. Me getting scared by lightning is a new one for sure. Also, the dog is scratching at the door. He wants in. He's terrified too. Wednesday, though, for Tampa, again, even the European, which kind of keeps us in the southeast a little bit longer, moves the storm pretty far from Florida. So depending on where you're flying, could be problematic, but probably okay there in Tampa. I was looking for Central Florida. It's gonna be a tropical weekend. Gusty winds, a lot of rain. And kind of, the normal culprits you see with tropical storms. Alrighty, well, those are some pretty good questions. I don't see any more, and the dog is kind of begging to get inside of the room now that lightning is all over the place, so I will take care of that. Ocala, yeah, Ocala will see some rain. It'll see some gusty winds, but probably nothing you can't handle. But again, could see some severe weather as well, so, be prepared for that as well. We could see a couple tornado warnings as this moves ashore. Alrighty, folks. Well, again, I appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in. Again, if you didn't already, like the stream and subscribe if you haven't. And we'll probably do another one tomorrow night, same time, same place. So, again, have a great rest of your Friday, everyone. Enjoy your weekend, and hopefully you're having a wonderful start to August out there. But I'll see you all next time.